All right, good afternoon, YouTube. Thanks for joining me. We are also over here on Zoom. I'm going to put a link in the chat. I hope you'll join me live on Zoom. If you're watching live Thursday, February 29th at noon Eastern Standard Time. Let's see here, chat. All right. Welcome back to Increase. I'm Blake Anderson, episode 58. Diving right back into organizational leadership. If you've been with me for a while, you know this is a topic near and dear to my heart. As I said at the beginning of the year, if you're going to see increase in 2024, it's going to be because you increased your leadership. Your results are going to be the direct result of your leadership. John C. Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And in my business and entrepreneurial career, I would have to concur. My early businesses were only able to expand and grow to the level of my leadership. And as I grew my leadership, my businesses were able to expand and grow even more. Because you're not going to do it alone. Great things are not done alone. The solopreneur thing is a myth. Every solopreneur doing anything meaningful still has help. You may not have a payroll employee, but you might have a virtual assistant. You might have a video editor. You might have someone who's a 1099 contractor. But you have a team of people. You can only do so much by yourself. And if you're trying to do it alone, I want to challenge you today. Let's raise your leadership to another level. Let's make room at the table for someone new to join you, and let's see things go to the next place. Let's see increase come to your business, come to your life. You might be a mid-level manager somewhere in the middle of the corporate org chart. This is for you too. No matter where you find yourself, you have the potential to be a leader, and you have the potential to be an organizational leader if you're trying to take a team of people to do something bigger than yourself. And I think we all want that. Ultimately, we all want to belong. We all want to feel like we're a part of something, that we're a part of something greater than ourselves. I think most people are only fulfilled with money to a certain extent, and the rest of what fulfills them about what they do is the people that they get to impact and the team that they get to work around. So that means everyone is a leader. Even if you see yourself as a follower, you have the potential to lead and influence. Because John Maxwell says that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. As you grow and you're influenced with other people, then they trust you to lead them to somewhere new. Trust you with an assignment, with a task, with a responsibility where you get to use your leadership. So organizational leadership is when we decide we're going to make a bigger play. We're going to move a team of people in an organization to a new place. Just some reminder quotes on organizational leadership. Organizational leadership is about leading and managing people towards achieving a strategic organizational goal. So organizational leader is a change agent, someone who sees the big picture, but also understands the processes or steps to make change happen. Organizational leadership, while nuanced, is exactly what it sounds like. It entails directing, coordinating individuals within an organization to achieve its goals or its mission. So if this is the first episode, you need to go back a few so that you can get caught up. These organizational leadership, there's 7 steps to it, and each step leads to the next step, and they're building blocks. When you get good at step 2, it will only be because you do step 1 well. And today we're going to be talking about step 3, and step 3 is empowered by step 1 and step 2. So if you want to wait, if you get to the end of this episode, go back and watch the first 2 steps. And even before that, we had an episode about the framework. We gave the 5 keys to being a successful organizational leader. And those 5 keys is the heart. It's the mindset, the mentality a leader must take to their team, and they apply all of those 5 keys into the 7 steps. So today, let's jump in. The third step along the process, they're all P's. It's position and product. Position and product. Step 1 is prosper, and that's really where we're defining goals. You're going to lead anyone anywhere. You got to know where you're going. You got to define a goal. You got to tell them, what's it look like if we prosper? If we're successful, what will that look like where we're going? The second thing is, after you've defined where you're going, we have to describe how we're willing to get there. What are we willing to do to get there? What are our principles and what are our values? What's our non-negotiables? How are we going to do it? Oftentimes we use words like integrity or transparency or courage or bravery. What are the principles that your organization has set? And what's the principles that each person on the team is doing their job with? And as we can get alignment there, then we get greater levels of cooperation and we can go to new places. So then that leads us to step number 3, which is the very next thing is we start to define the positions in the product. So the product, what is the organization producing? And then what are the positions of everyone on the team necessary to make that product possible? So before we create a process, before we create a plan, before we recruit the people, we've got to somewhat create an org chart. And really, we need to bring clarity to the tasks and responsibilities. You ever been on a team where everyone seemed to work really hard, but you missed the deadline? Or everything looked really good until you delivered the product and the customer said, well, you missed this or you missed that. Or there's a typo here or something slipped through the cracks that maybe it looked great, but it wasn't 100% complete. See, many teams have extraordinarily talented people on them, but they're missing the mark because there's not clarity of responsibility. They haven't clearly defined the positions that everyone is filling, how they work together to create the product that the organization says that it needs to create. And so positions about finding clarity of responsibility, right? What are you responsible for as the leader? What is every team member responsible for? Does everyone on the team know who's responsible for what? Is everyone working together and knows who is going to do what? Is there clarity of responsibility? Now, organizational leaders must always fight for clarity of responsibility. Now, if you're the top dog in charge, you need to be very clear about who you've assigned things to make sure that everything's accounted for. But also, if you're on the team, if you're maybe down the org chart a little bit, you need to be clear about what is the person that's working next to you, what are they responsible for, and what is your team leader responsible for, not just what you're responsible for. Because we've got to make sure that everything's accounted for and we're working in alignment for greater cooperation, for greater results. So let's look into this. We're talking about responsibility and accountability, almost synonyms of words, but they mean slightly different things. Let's dive into responsibility. Responsibility is a personal thing. You take responsibility. And what we're saying is someone who takes responsibility has ownership of an outcome, ownership of a task, okay? And so understand this. Success will be random, temporary, and fleeting until you take 100% responsibility for your actions and outcomes. Let me say this again. Success will be random, temporary, or fleeting at best until you start to take 100% responsibility for your actions and your outcomes. So if you're responsible for something and you need to take 100% responsibility for it, you better have clarity about what you've signed up for. Agreed? Then we have accountability. Now, accountability is basically responsibility in a relational thing. It's relational terms. So when we're talking about accountability, you're responsible for the work of others, but you're also responsible to others with what you have, right? So the answer for this, when we're talking about clarity of position, is who will answer for the results? Who's ultimately going to sign on the dotted line? Who is going to answer for the results? Who is willing to be accountable for the team's ability, for the team's responsibilities? Okay. And let's think about this here. Most people are excited about the title of leader. They want to be looked up to. They want to be able to make the decision. They want it to be their way. You see, many people want to be recognized as responsible, but let's be honest. Few are willing to be held accountable. Okay? This takes courage. To be held accountable, it takes courage because you're vulnerable. When you are accountable to your boss and you're responsible for the work of your team, it takes courage and it takes vulnerability. But it takes clarity of what every member on the team is doing so that you can have that confidence and you're willing to sign your name on the dotted line. Strong leaders and truly successful people understand that they're accountable, that no matter how high up you climb in the food chain on the corporate ladder, that to be successful, you're going to have to be willing to be held accountable and you're going to have to be willing to take responsibility. You see, every leader has got someone they're accountable to. You might be accountable to your team members. You might be accountable to your team leader. You might be accountable to the division manager or the vice president of the department. You might be accountable to the business owner. But even the business owner is accountable. It's accountable to his or her investors, accountable to the customers that you've agreed to provide a good or service to. Accountable, even as a boss, you're accountable to your employees who are counting on you to continue to grow the business and provide for them and for their role. And ultimately, you understand that we're all accountable to God. God is always watching us. And you might be able to shift blame in a circumstance, but you'll still be accountable for your actions to God. And so the strongest leaders know I'm always accountable. I can't get out from underneath it. I got to take responsibility for my actions. And so since I know I'm always responsible to God, I'm always accountable to him, then I step up into that when it comes to my team and when it comes to the results. But I know if I'm going to be successful at it, then I've got to, as a leader, fight for clarity of responsibility. So as we wrap this all up, we're taking these 7 steps in these bite-sized chunks so we can think about them independently and really hone in on the importance of each of these steps. As a leader, you accepted your position, was voluntary, or you're getting paid for it, and you understood that you had to take responsibility for something in exchange for the pay, in exchange for the contract. But organizational leaders know you got to go a step further. If I'm going to lead a team to do something great, then there's got to be clarity of responsibility. Everyone working together must be crystal clear about who's doing what, so that we don't double our efforts, but so we don't lose track of the important details. See, the goal is organizational alignment that leads to cooperation. Organizational alignment that leads to cooperation. And when we have clarity of responsibility, we can create alignment and have greater cooperation. So I'm going to leave you with some questions to really think through the team that you're on, the people that you work with and that you work for. And you start by thinking, what am I responsible for? Really, what am I responsible for? What did I sign up for? But what is even implied that others are counting on me for? Once I'm clear about what I'm responsible for, then I've got to start taking note of the people around me. What are the people on my level responsible for? What are the people down the chain of command for me responsible for? The people reporting to me. What tasks are they responsible for? And are all of them accounted for? Because ultimately, the people down the chain of command, you will be held accountable for their performance. So you want to make sure they're crystal clear about what they are taking responsibility for, and that all the actions and activities have got a name by them. And then the most effective organizational leaders, they don't stop there. They look up the chain of command and they think, what is my boss responsible for? What is my department responsible for? What's my organization responsible for? Because, no matter where you are, you can be the change agent that creates alignment in your organization, and you can do it right from the middle. You see, some of the best leaders that we will find out there will be the folks that don't have their name on the billboard, who you don't see mentioned in the website. Often the best leaders are the ones that are in the middle of the corporate structure, who are having to lead down and up, who are having to take responsibility for the actions of others, but who also are learning how to influence the people above them. And so all of you can be a great organizational leader. Many of you are working in situations where there's not clarity, where the results are random, temporary, or fleeting. And one day it seems like everything's going well, and the next day it's all falling apart. And any one of you can step up to the plate at any moment in time and bring clarity to a situation by starting to find out who's doing what and looking for the missing pieces and seeing how everybody can work together better. And bringing clarity of responsibility to your position and those who you're working around. Now, the best organizational leaders, they bring the clarity. They continue to guide their team through that clarity. And they also are doing it with the first two steps in mind. With everything they do and all the guidance and direction that they're bringing, they always keep in mind, what's the goal? Where are we going? And they're always trying to stay true to their guiding principles personally, the principles and values of their team and their organization, because they understand that the person who brings alignment takes the business to a whole nother level. So I hope that you'll join me on this journey. We're not quite halfway there, but they're going to keep building on each other. As I'm equipping and empower you to change your organization, change your team, change your community, change the world. Join me next time for another episode of Increase. If you're watching live on YouTube, we're going to cut the feed. You can look in the chat. You'll see we have a Zoom link there. I'd love to join you over here on Zoom. I'll stick around for a few minutes, talk with anybody who's available, want to discuss today's topic. God bless you. Thanks for watching. If you're on Zoom, hang out for a second. We'll get